In this lesson, we're going to learn how we can spawn new particles from existing particles whenever they collide with a deflector. Okay, so here's what we have in our scene so far. We've got our bricks coming out of our explosion area. They bounce on our ground plane, and then they ultimately stop because of that friction. Now, what we want to do is actually add a little bit more to this and actually add some debris to spawn off of these bricks whenever they collide with the ground. Okay? So let's go ahead and switch to our perspective view. Let's just hit P on the keyboard. And I'm going to select my particle flow source and hit Z just to zoom in on this area. And what we want to do is go ahead and open up our particle view. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little bit more room here because I'm actually going to be using a different type of collision, and we're going to be creating a new event off of this collision event, or this collision operator. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this over just off to the right here, and let's kind of grab these and move them over, and I'm just going to grab this one and kind of straighten it back up here. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to actually replace this collision with a collision spawn. So let's drag this collision spawn up over the top of this collision. Now the reason we want to do that is because whenever these objects collide with a deflector, they'll actually automatically spawn new particles. So let's go ahead and set up this collision, and what we need to do is go ahead and reassociate its deflector. So we're going to do by list and choose U deflector. Okay, so now our particles, our bricks, will go ahead and collide. They'll bounce, and it's still working properly. Now what we want to do is we want to actually go ahead and set up our actual debris. So let's go to our top view. Let's go ahead and close this particle view for right now. So let's go to our top view, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off this viewport background. And let's actually draw in some pieces of debris. So I'm going to use my shapes, and I'm going to use my line tool and just kind of draw this in here. So I'm just going to draw a couple of different shapes. And you don't have to be real careful about this because it's going to be a very small shape. Okay. I'll create something that looks kind of like a broken brick. Okay. And we'll create a couple of other shapes. Might make these a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do one more and make this kind of a smaller half of the broken brick. Okay, we don't have to be exact here. And what I want to do now is go ahead and select these objects, and I'm going to group these together. So let's go to group and call this debris. Okay, now if you want to change the colors of these, I'm going to go ahead and actually hit group and open and select just this one here and make this a little bit lighter just so you can see it a little easier. There we go. And I'm going to hit group and close to make that group whole again. Okay, so now what I want to do is actually make this some 3D geometry. So let's go to our modify panel, and I'm going to go to my modifier list, and I'm going to use the bevel modifier. Now with this, let's go ahead and hit P on our keyboard, and let's kind of rotate around here because I want to see my shape. And we're going to go ahead and adjust our height on our level 1 of our bevel values here. So let's kind of extrude this up, and let's take our outline down. Well, actually, let's go up here, and we just kind of want to bevel this out. We take my height down a little bit, and let's go to level 2, activate that, take our height up. You'll see how we're getting a different shape here. We'll take our outline, we'll leave that at 0, and we'll activate level 3, give that a little bit of height as well, and then take down our outline to kind of bevel that back in. Okay, so we've got some debris objects here, and let's go ahead and actually associate these to our new particle system. Alright, so let's go ahead. First off, let me scale these down really quickly. Those are very large, and we don't want those to be this big whenever they're trying to explode from these bricks. That doesn't make any sense. So let's just scale these down really small here. Now be careful not to lose these. Okay, we can always select those by name, so that's not a big issue. Now let's go back to our particle flow source. So we're going to right click to just kind of turn off that debris there, deselect those. And let's select our particle flow source. And let's go to our particle view. And now what we've got is we've got our collision spawn. And what we need to do now is actually tell it what to spawn. Because right now, what we have is our bricks are colliding. We've got some bricks that are now being lost. They're not colliding any longer. Well, these objects that are no longer colliding, these are actually new particles. They're not the old ones, so they're no longer being affected by this collision. So what we have to do is create a new event to control these new particles that are being spawned. So let's go ahead and let's actually drag in a shape instance, and we're not connecting it to anything. We're just going to create a new event. Okay? Now, what I want to do is wire this collision to this new event. So we're going to select right here, and you'll get this little crosshair, and we're going to select and drag, and we're going to connect it right to this circle here. Okay? So now whenever we have collisions, they're going to go over to this event here. Now you can see that we have these particles that are emitting here. Okay? So now let's go ahead and let's take the shape instance here, and we're going to choose our debris. So let's go to none, and let's select that debris there. And we may have to go to our perspective and zoom in on that. We made those pretty small there. And let's just check that. And let's change our ticks to geometry. So now we have that debris there. Now you'll notice that these are basically clumped together. They're still grouped. So what I want to do is go to my shape instance, and I want to check this grouped members. So that way it breaks it apart, and our particles will now basically randomly generate from one of those grouped objects that we just created. Okay? So now we've got this debris, and let's go ahead and finish up working with these behaviors on our debris here. So let's go ahead and let's add in a force, because we want these to work with our gravity. So let's drag that in there. And we're going to go ahead and use gravity. So let's do by list. Okay, so now those particles are going to be affected by gravity. And let's kind of bring this back here, just kind of see what we're getting. And we want to go ahead and actually add a collision to this event here, because whenever our particles hit, they only collide once and then they'll fall through. So let's go to collision. Just kind of drag this in here, and we're going to use that U deflector. So we'll do by list. Okay, so now our particles hit, and then now they'll collide with that there. Okay, now you'll notice that our bricks are now gone. So what's going on with that? Okay, well, you'll notice that whenever they collide, those bricks disappear, and then they turn into this rubble here. Now you could go ahead and do that if you like, but I want to keep some of those whole bricks. So let's go to our collision spawn, and what I want to do is actually uncheck this delete parent. And by doing that, our bricks will stay there. So now we have this debris, and we have our bricks. Okay? Alright, so this is a really neat way to create some debris here. And if you want, you could go ahead and actually adjust how many different pieces of debris. So we can just take our offspring number up. So let's go up to, let's say 5 or 6 here. And we get a lot more debris here whenever we get this particle spawning. So this looks really neat. Now the final thing that I want to do is go ahead and add a material to this debris. Now this debris is very small, so we're not really going to get an elaborate material. What I'm going to do is just make a material that's basically just a color. So let's go ahead and close this particle view, and open up our material editor. And let's go ahead and just drag in a standard material. And what I want to do is actually go ahead and just pick a color off of our brick here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of zoom in the best that I can here. And let's actually go ahead and just double click on our new material. And let's call this debris, just so we can keep this nice and straight here, keep it organized. And let's just take our diffuse color and use this eyedropper and just choose a color on our brick here just to get close. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select our debris objects, our instance geometry here. So let's select it and let's assign that to our debris. Now let's go ahead and zoom in here, and there's our new material applied here. So let's just do a quick render just to check that. And actually, you know what? It's actually turned gray, and it's going to be gray for one simple reason. Let's go to our particle view. So what we can do is hit 6 on our keyboard. And remember that in order for an instance piece of geometry to have a material, or a particle to have a material, it actually has to have a material operator in here. So let's go to material static. We've been using that material dynamic, so let's just go ahead and use this material static. Now material static is going to basically just be a regular material. It's not animated, it's just to place a really simple material on. Okay? Now let's go ahead and apply this. So let's click on our material static and hit none, and we'll scroll down to the bottom. And we're going to use our debris. Let's see, there it is right there. And we'll double click that, and now this will be applied to our geometry. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this out. Now we've got our bricks, we've got our debris, and this is going really, really nicely. Okay, so what we want to do in our next lesson with this is we want to go ahead and animate the brick wall to disappear and make our broken brick wall appear, and then we also want to add a force called P-bomb to really make this explosion look a little more realistic and give it a lot more chaos. So we'll do that in our next lesson.